So now we will look ahead to what's in store for NSGC in 2018. I am so proud to introduce my friend Erica Ramos, our incoming 2018 NSGC president, who will be presenting her incoming presidential address. For those of you in the audience who haven't met Erica, she has served in a variety of roles with NSGC. Most recently, she has been a director at large on the board and has been a personalized medicine expert for NSGC since 2013. She received her master's degree from the University of California, Irvine, and then worked as a prenatal and preconceptional genetic counselor for Genzyme Genetics. In 2005, she moved to Las Vegas to help start Genetics, where she was part of the team who created an innovative breast cancer risk assessment program partnered with Advanced Medical Imaging. In 2012, Erica joined Illumina in the Illumina Clinical Services Laboratory, where she managed the genetic counseling and variant curation teams that implemented the interpretation and reporting process for whole genome sequencing in healthy individuals and launched the lab's undiagnosed disease offering. In her current role at Illumina as Associate Director, Market Development for the Precision Health and Screening Team, Erica is focused on advancing the use of whole genome sequencing in clinical care with experiential educational programs like the Understand Your Genome program. Erica currently serves on the advisory board for the Center for Genomic Interpretation and is also adjunct professor in the Genetic Counseling Department at Augustana University. She is a tireless advocate for our profession through her tweets from E. Ramos, SD, and her numerous media interviews on genomics and genetic counseling. Erica believes in the simple philosophy, success is when opportunity meets hard work. Erica?
I'm a genetic counselor, and I have the privilege to represent the more than 3,600 members of NSGC as president in 2018. Like the video you watched yesterday and what you've heard from Mary, I'm starting today with words from last year's Emerging Roles in Genetic Counseling panel. My friend and our incredible president, Mary Freivogel, issued a challenge to all of us. She asked us to step away from words like traditional or clinical, and abandon qualifiers like, I was trained as a genetic counselor, but Twitter exploded immediately in a really beautiful way, with genetic counselors sharing all the things that they do, all the things that make them genetic counselors. As much as any other message last year, this one resonated. It had impact. I'm a genetic counselor, and those 6 words have taken on a life of their own. And I have a few ideas as to why. First, and this is going to sound painfully obvious, we are all genetic counselors. Do you remember waiting by the phone on acceptance day, holding your breath when it rang? Grinding your teeth when you found out you were waitlisted at one of your top choices? Maybe hearing you didn't get in that year? Screaming when you did get accepted? I do. I remember all of it. We've all shared the same training. We depended on our second years to show us the way, and we paid it forward to our first years. We struggled through the same boards, and I have a special shout out to those who took it the year I did. The first year it was offered electronically. Showing up at the testing center ready to go, being told the computers were broken and we couldn't test. Yeah, it was bad. I bet no one in this room forgets what it was like to receive that first abnormal test result, when it was only your responsibility to talk to that parent, patient, or family. I got mine late on a Friday afternoon, and I spent 3 sleepless nights running through a script in my head, but wondering how I was ever going to do a good job telling a woman that her baby had a chromosome abnormality. What would I say? How could I make it okay? We've all sat in those rooms and felt hopeless when we couldn't wave our magic wands and make their pain disappear. But we've also shared in the joys. We've got to sit in that same room and give good news to a patient or family who desperately needed it. We felt that indescribable feeling of stretching our counseling skills further than we ever thought we could and connecting with that one patient when we thought we couldn't. We supported them as they made the tough choices. We made a difference. And it all comes around. As my career has developed, sharing in the journey of an enthusiastic future genetic counselor has truly become one of my greatest joys in life. And as I was putting this together and pulling some of these tweets, I realized there are now people who dream of being in this room right here with all of you. And all of you have made that happen. That certainly wasn't the case when I was looking at becoming a genetic counselor about 20 years ago. We get to now sit down with these guys over a cup of coffee and explain our profession and our expertise and our joy. And then we get to hear from them months or even years later that they got into a program. And then we get to see them at their first NSGC conference, which I had the pleasure of doing yesterday. And we tell them to be responsible at the parties a little bit. We get to meet new classes of genetic counselors and see how poised and knowledgeable and incredible and brilliant they are, especially compared to when I was a first year. We are so thrilled in San Diego to now have the Augustana Genetic Counseling Program as part of us, and they are so good. It's so fun to work with them. And then we get to watch them graduate, hundreds and hundreds of genetic counselors every year, and hear that they got their first job and struggled through their boards and passed. Oops. And this is the future. We can connect with them virtually. These are the genetic counselors who will be making us proud 3, 4, even 5 years down the road. But it is more than our shared experiences. It's what's at the heart of our profession. We all share the same code of ethics, a code that requires us to trust in our clients and value their welfare, autonomy, individuality, and freedom. To ensure that our professional relationships are grounded in veracity, fidelity, caring, support, and mutual respect. To remain interested and engaged in all of the activities that promote the well-being of society and access to genetic services. And to demand professionalism, integrity, objectivity, dignity, and accountability from ourselves. And we share the same passions, a passion for science, for helping people, for improving human health, and let's be honest, for cardigans. That's why I'm a genetic counselor is so powerful. It unites us. In our common background, our passions, our values, and our shared vision. It unites us as NSGC. As Linda Robinson so perfectly said yesterday, NSGC is a team. Everyone doesn't just get a chance to play. We need you to play. But know that you don't all need to play in exactly the same way. I certainly haven't over the years. My relationship with NSGC has evolved over time. I've had many starts and stops. Sometimes that was because of my circumstances, and sometimes that was just because of me. When I was in my training program, participation in NSGC wasn't really facilitated or honestly even really addressed. And I could not be more thrilled that that has changed now, especially seeing the hundreds of people who came for new student orientation and for the other day. When I had my first job, I was studying for boards. I was trying to see patients on my own, and I just felt like I had way too much on my plate to participate. And honestly, when I think about those years, there was probably something else at play. I felt small. and inexperienced and overwhelmed. I couldn't really imagine what an organization like NSGC could get from me, one that had so many incredible and knowledgeable members. And even if I'd gotten past that part, I really didn't know where to start. But things changed dramatically for me in 2005 when I was looking for a new job. I was offered a position in an early stage company out in Las Vegas that was building personalized medicine clinics for adults. The opportunity to build a new program from scratch was incredibly appealing to me. Never mind we were going to start with cancer. Never mind that there weren't any other cancer counselors in Las Vegas. Never mind that I had only seen one cancer patient during my training program. It's true. As my nephew used to say, those were the long time agos. Oh, and by the way, almost no one in Las Vegas was doing cancer counseling, or even in their own practices, or ordering hereditary cancer testing. And the two biggest insurers in the Valley that covered the teachers and the culinary workers not only weren't offering it, they had policy exclusions for all genetic testing. So, yeah, you can probably guess the punchline. I needed NSGC desperately, like all of the time. And NSGC was there. I lived on the listserv. I was able to ask questions of some of the most knowledgeable cancer genetic counselors around, and they were there without fail, even though they had never met me, even though they had no specific reason to help me. They shared letter templates and journal articles and advice, and they showed me how to make my case to the insurance companies that genetic counseling and testing were crucial to taking the best possible care of their patients. And after a few years, I was ready to give back. I was usually one of many to raise my hand. And most of the things that I was comfortable with doing, most other people were too. But I was raising my hand. NSGC was there again a few years later. After 6 years in Las Vegas, I had contracts with the 3 largest insurance companies around. I was a fixture at the local tumor boards. I was seeing more than 20 new patients a week. And I had helped to build this fantastic software that was collecting family history and drawing pedigrees and doing risk assessments. And it wasn't enough. My benefits were limited to basic health care. I hadn't taken a raise in 3 years. And I couldn't even cover my own salary with my billing. So for all of you fighting for payer recognition and for licensure, I know how critical that fight is. I couldn't overcome it, but we can, and we will. The company that I helped to start folded in 2011. I was anxious. I really wanted another job where I could start to where I could keep building programs and build products. But I needed to pay the rent. To make matters worse, the recession had decimated the Las Vegas housing market. And at the end of it all, after pouring myself into a company and into the cancer counseling community of Las Vegas, I was thanking my lucky stars to be leaving Las Vegas with my Jeep, my dog, and the clothes on my back. I know it sounds like a country song. Then I reached out to the wonderful Julianne O'Daniel. Julianne was the education committee chair when I was the co-chair of the online course subcommittee. She was the first genetic counselor to work for some company called Illumina. They did something with DNA sequencing. Julianne was working on whole genome sequencing, which I found incredibly fascinating, and I wanted in. I reached out to her on LinkedIn, and literally within an hour, I had an answer. She told me that she actually was hiring, but it wasn't going to be for a few more months. But she was willing to try to get that position moved up so that maybe I could get in a little bit earlier, and she would get a little extra help. She took my resume and shepherded it up the chain. Sounds like just typical networking, right? Well, when I got the job and I was on my way to San Diego and I was thanking her for all of her support and hard work, she said, well, I figured if you were working hard when you were volunteering, you might just be even better if we actually paid you. That's right, the work that I had done for NSGC is really the reason that I have the job that I still have today, and a job that I really love. My path with NSGC hasn't always been a straight one. First, it was just there were resources that I needed. But then there were things that I wanted to be a part of, and then needed to be a part of. And then there were things that needed me to be a part of them. I started to find my unique voice. I recognized that my path could help to guide others, and that I could contribute in ways that maybe others couldn't. And then I developed a new perspective on all the incredible places that we can go, and I wanted to share that message with the world. This is my chance to serve, to give back, and that's really why I'm standing here today. There's a moment that I'll never forget when I first served on the board of directors. Every fall at this meeting, we have an in-person board meeting, and the new members of the board sit in on those sessions. And it's a long day, and my head was spinning at all of the incredible initiatives that NSGC had and all the leadership in that room. I was sharing my awe with one of the executives from Smith Buckland, our management association company, and he told me in a very serious and genuine tone about how NSGC was like no other organization that he worked with. It's not the opportunity or the growth that you all have, he said. It's the people. It's the enthusiasm to participate, contribute, and to make a difference. And the more people who contribute and participate, the more diversity we have. Malcolm Forbes is quoted as saying, "Diversity is the art of thinking independently together." Our organization thrives on diversity in all areas, but especially diversity of thought, knowledge, and expertise. Sometimes that stems from your gender identity or nationality or age, but it also comes from the wide breadth of collective experiences of the people in this room and across our membership. So if any of you have doubts about whether you can contribute, what you can contribute, or how you can contribute, I get it. I was there too. But I want you to leave here today knowing that you can contribute a lot or a little. You can come and go. NSGC is here to lift you up until you're ready to help lift others. NSGC is a team, and we need you to play. And we live in a world where we can be NSGC from all over the world. Some of you might have noticed I'm on Twitter every once in a while. I know. I have the same hesitations as you, but I'm a definite convert. It's almost impossible for me to keep up on genetic counseling and genomics and everything else out there in the world, but I can guarantee it's one of the few ways that you can keep up on the people who care about the things that you care about, the people who share your passions. And yes, I do mean genetic counseling and genomics, but I also mean the other ties that bind, like good dogs, or the West Wing, and my beloved Green Bay Packers. Thank you. And the joy of Bill Clinton frolicking in balloons and hiding behind bushes. I'm going to give you a minute to fully appreciate this one. It's my favorite. This may sound silly, but I'm certain that I've gotten to know more colleagues from around the world and had more fun doing it than I ever have before. So to get you started and to join me and Mary and Janine and the more than 250 genetic counselors just that I was able to find on Twitter, I created a list on my Twitter feed called I Am a Genetic Counselor. If you're willing, create an account, test it out, follow the list, and get to know all of us around the world. But I do have to warn you, there are Viking fans on there. You got Bill Clinton in balloons. I've learned that when you know who you are, you find your tribe. And all I can speak to is my own experience. But I have found some of the most wonderful, funny, brilliant, and amazing people I've ever known through NSGC. And I can't go any further without specifically acknowledging Mary Freivogel and Janine Austin, since their words and hearts bleed through so many of my thoughts today. Thank you. Thank you for your mentorship, friendship, and leadership. And for teaching me that if you want to stand on the shoulders of giants, you've got to have great shoes. We've grown a lot in 36 years. We're getting bigger and more spread out. It's a challenge to allow our common profession to unite us, but it must. We are united, and we are NSGC, and we have a common mission to integrate genetics and genomics to improve health for all. I've talked to you about who we are, where we are. Now I want to talk to you about what we can do as NSGC, because there's still that sixth word. I am a genetic counselor, and. Some might hear the and think of all the things that make us different. I encourage us all to hear the and to remember the things that unite us, and to be amazed at how we're doing such different but remarkable things. There are two quotes that I love and that are inextricably linked in my mind. The first is often attributed to Sheryl Sandberg, but was actually part of a conversation that she had with Eric Schmidt, who had recently become CEO of Google. In her remarkable book, Lean In, she recounted the struggle that she had when she was offered a job as a business unit manager at Google. I know, even Google was not always prime opportunity. Sheryl wanted a real job with goals and teams and structure. She made a comprehensive spreadsheet of all of her opportunities. Sound familiar to anyone? I know we have some type A's in this audience. Believe it or not, Google fell short. And Schmidt told her, oops, if you're offered a seat on a rocket ship, you don't ask what seat. You just get on. And she did. The second is from Richard Branson. If someone offers you an amazing opportunity, but you're not sure you can do it, say yes and learn how to do it later. These two quotes in part are another reason why I'm here today. They're great, right? Courageous and daring, filled with excitement and opportunity. But I remember thinking about these at different times in my life and being a little disappointed when I was worried that I couldn't go after something and succeed. And then I realized nothing in these quotes says that you have to do it alone. Nothing says that you don't get training and mentorship and guidance. Nothing says that you don't get to ask for help, or more importantly, that you're any less for doing so. And nothing says that you can't be a little afraid. Last year and this morning, Mary asked us to do something that scares us. I like John Wayne's version. Courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyways. Every single person in this room is on a rocket ship. Being on the rocket ship should scare us a little. And we should do it anyways, because we have this incredible opportunity as genetic counselors and this incredible team to do it with. And Janine shared the important part a couple of years ago. We get to drive. And that's why I now have another quote to add. The best way to predict the future is to create it. By creating the future, by driving, we decide when to brake and when to accelerate, what turns to make. We're the first to see opportunities and to make the most of them. And most importantly, we're in control of our own destinies. To borrow a line from the amazing patient communities that we help to support, nothing about us without us. Many have talked about how we can and should be embedded into primary care and every other area of healthcare, and I can't agree more. I want us to fill clinics of all types. I want everyone who needs access to a genetic counselor to have it. But I also believe that we need to take it further. Genetic counselors should be involved in every area of medicine that ties to genomics and patient care. From the building of the tools, to the building of the technology, to the building of the collaborations and relationships that will really guide our future. Genetic counselors add value to every step in that chain. When you bring the voice of the clinician, the patient, and their families further up the pipeline, you get the best clinical results. And most importantly, it connects everyone along that path to the people who are at the end of it. I work in a biotech company, but I bring the clinic to work with me every single day. I was recently asked to give a talk to our tech support team about all of the genetic counselors in our company and what we all do. I didn't talk to them about our knowledge of markets or how we can positively impact revenue or bottom lines, even though we can. I talked about one of the first patients that I saw when I was a cancer counselor. I told them the story of a lovely young woman called Julia, who was very pregnant with her second child. I told them how she had metastatic breast cancer, and she had elected to delay her chemotherapy until she was further along in the pregnancy so that the risk was lower to the baby. She knew that her cancer was growing all the while. No one had ever thought to offer this woman breast imaging before her pregnancy, even though she had lost her mother at a very young age. And she had one of the strongest family histories that I've still ever seen to this day. And I told them how she died of her disease before her daughter's first birthday. She was 40 years old. And I told them that story because the stories are what matter. It matters that that team knows that the things that they do help to make sure that better tests are offered, more women are tested, and more lives are saved. Julia's story and that of her daughter is something I think about almost every day, and it makes me want to do better. But when I thought about telling you this story, I thought, no, they know how this works. They know I'll have these same patients and families. But I'm telling it to you today because I'm confident that patients like Julia can become fewer and further between, because we have something now that we didn't have then. We have the technology and the science, but most importantly, we have 3,600 remarkable members of NSGC and at least one tech support team who are not going to let there be any more Julias. It takes a lot of people to build a rocket ship, but it definitely takes us. Genetic counselors innovate, we lead, we create, we build bridges, we build companies. And I'm not talking just about those of us who work in industry. Genetic counselors in the clinic, working in research, and building the programs that train our next generation of genetic counselors are doing the same. We're seeing massive incorporation in subspecialties like cancer and cardiology and neurology. Clinical counselors are expanding access and working on things like telegenetics, utilization management, and working with technology companies to build the tools that will enable them to spend more time with the patients who need them. And our program directors are building incredible programs and innovating how we can keep our workforce strong and robust. And again, I got the pleasure of meeting many, many new students, and I've talked to some of our program directors. We've got an awesome future. I'm a genetic counselor and. So why have those 6 words taken on a life of their own? They remind us who we are, where we come from, what unites us, and all of the incredible skills that we have to offer as genetic counselors, no matter the and. I'm a pretty optimistic person, but I'm not standing in front of you today suggesting that we don't have challenges and common concerns. Mary talked about how we're addressing those as NSGC, and you have our strategic initiatives in front of you. We know that you're worried about our future, how we're going to manage the patients that need us. We see threats from other providers. We see changes in policy and politics. And we worry about losing our identity, what makes us unique and valuable. But I'm confident with the people in this room we can overcome those challenges. If you think back to the tweets that I showed you earlier, every specialty, job setting, employer, they were all represented. If you look around you, you'll see the same. We're all doing incredible things individually, but everything we do that will be truly outstanding will be better when we do it together. And by working together, we'll ensure that we're solving the right problems in the right ways. Janine laid out a roadmap to being the leaders in the integration of genetics and genomics. Mary dared us to shed our differences and to be brave. I'm going to ask you to be willing to look at our profession with new eyes. That's what I've used so many pictures of kids today. They're kind of the best at this, and they're just better pictures. Be curious, ask questions, and risk not knowing the answers. There are 3 days left in this conference, 9 meals to eat, 2 nights to go have drinks at a bar, or a few bars. Have a challenging conversation about our profession. Talk to somebody who might just change your perspective. Think deeply about where we're going and where you want us to go. Share your thoughts with your colleagues and with the leaders at NSGC. Leave Columbus with a new idea as to how you can make a difference. Connect with the counselors, connect through social media, and look for unexpected opportunities to share the value of genetic counselors. It's not all about what we do, it's really about why we do it. We do it because we all have our own Julias, and they can't wait. And the rocket ship of genomics and DTC and population sequencing isn't going to wait either. It will accelerate faster and faster. It will be difficult. But difficult is interesting and challenging and stimulating and awesome. And don't worry, we're driving, remember? We have our marching orders as NSGC in front of us. We will be dedicated to advancing the needs of genetic counselors of all different ands over the next year. As president of NSGC, it's my job to share our message. And I will be proud and grateful every day of 2018 to represent the people in this room and the work that we're doing together toward integrating genetics and genomics to improve health for all. Thank you for allowing me to serve our organization and our profession alongside of you. As Mary said yesterday, I'm so proud to be a genetic counselor. Thank you.